So today we're making a French buttercream, and this one is going to be in the flavor of rose and raspberry. So let's go through all the steps that we need. Everything is of course completely plant-based and dairy-free. This particular buttercream is not very sweet. It's still super silky smooth and stable enough for our macaron filling. So the first thing that we're going to do is whip up some vegan margarine. Now I'm using a firm variety of margarine or a high fat, something that you would exchange butter for. And we want to make sure that it is nice and soft. You want to use it at room temperature, or you can soften up in your microwave just in 5-second intervals. So I'm going to whip this for about 5 minutes. We want to get it nice and fluffy and incorporate some air in there. Okay, so it's been going for 5 minutes. Let's sift in our confectioner's sugar. This is going to help stabilize our buttercream. So whilst this is not a traditional French buttercream, it has a very similar taste and texture. A traditional French buttercream would actually use raw eggs. These days they tend to use either pasteurized eggs or a pastry cream or some type of custard. And we're going to be doing something similar, but of course making it plant-based. So let's mix in our icing sugar, and we're going to beat this for a couple more minutes. Now to flavor our buttercream, we're using some rose water. And this is a very common ingredient here in Greece. I just buy it like in one of these bottles here. If you are using rose extract, the quantity is going to be far less. You only need a couple of drops. But for the rose water, I've left the measurement in your recipe. So we're going to add that. I'm going to whip this now. Incorporate that well. And to give this the raspberry flavor, I'm using some freeze-dried raspberry powder. If you can't find freeze-dried raspberry powder, you can buy just the whole freeze-dried raspberries. And I just used my spice grinder, that's why I've got it out, to blend it into a powder, and then I just sift out the seeds and just weigh out what you need. It also gives a lovely color too. At this stage, we are going to slowly start adding our pastry cream or the quick custard recipe that you'll find in your recipe. So I'm just going to add like a spoon at a time, and we're going to beat in between each addition. So now that's nicely whipped up, we can take off our beaters, and we're going to get out some of those larger air bubbles. So just going back and forth with our spatula. Now, if you're doing a very large batch of this, you can just do it in your stand mixer, just change it to the paddle attachment. And we just want to let it run for a couple of minutes on the lowest speed, just to get rid of some of those big air bubbles. Now let's get this into a piping bag. You can use any kind of tip that you like. If you want to use a fluted tip, I'm using a round tip nozzle today, just keeping it nice and classic. And just try not to add too many air pockets when you're popping it into your piping bag. And we're all ready to go with our rose and raspberry French buttercream.